Tomorrow is going to be a pretty big day. And I mean, if you've been in the financial markets for a longer time, you'll probably already know that this is going to happen. But in case you're not, let me tell you that every single time this happens, the internet goes a little bit crazy. But more importantly, for crypto, almost every single time it happens, there's a interesting amount of volatility because of this one announcement. But there are more things happening actually that you might want to be made aware of, and I think I'll actually start extrapolating here by explaining to you something that is happening now. You will hopefully be able to understand more about what could happen in the near future and react better and hopefully make some more money. You'll get it as we get there, but just let's dive into thing number one that is happening tomorrow, which is most likely also the most important event. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure you press that like button. Let's dive right in. So even though I think today the most interesting part was that Coinbase went down and everybody's talking about it because they are afraid of the repercussions and that one day Coinbase just might not start back up again. And today there was an interesting Fed Chair Powell speech, which this time around I don't think is as interesting, but it's a good preparation for what's happening tomorrow. And again, for all the uninitiated, it's right here. We've got ourselves the core and just traditional inflation numbers in the US that are gonna be coming out. And almost every single time these come out, it does something for crypto, particularly if the numbers deviate from what is expected. Right now, for example, the year-over-year inflation rate is or has been 3.5%, and the forecast is at 3.5% again, meaning that generally speaking, things got more expensive, sure, because take a look at it month over month, but basically not at an increased rate. Particularly because if we look at the month over month number, it's going down from 0.4 to 0.3%. And when looking at core, it's going from 3.8 supposedly to 3.7, co-aligning with the month over month going from 0.4 to 0.3. However, if it turns out that this is a little bit too bloomy, this is a little bit too nice, usually it affects the markets in a pretty negative way because almost nobody likes too high of an inflation when the foundations don't really match. Again, usually high inflation should be paired with a really booming and really good economy and things being okay in a manageable sense. But right now, I wouldn't say things are too bloomy for the right reasons. They're bloomy if you take a look at the S&P, etc., but not bloomy for the right reasons, especially when looking at the interest rate. But yeah, we've also got ourselves two Fed Chair Powell speeches this week, one happening in a few hours from now, I think like 3 hours from now. But by the time you're watching this video, it probably has already happened. And then one in, let's just call this 4 or 5 days from now, depending on where you're watching this from. Let's call it 5 days from now. We have another Fed Chair Powell speech, which is followed by the FOMC minutes coming out another few days afterwards in exactly a week from now. I got distracted a bit over the last little bit here reading up on inflation because one thing that really shocks me, at least that has shocked me quite recently here, is the amount of people that don't understand why we are going for crypto in a sort of reaction to the crazy inflation that's going around, and why ultimately higher inflation could actually be a really big catalyst for crypto, even though in the near history it hasn't necessarily acted like that. Understand that from a TradFi perspective, high inflation means you stacking cash is not really nice. From a Bitcoin perspective, high inflation is pretty awesome because it makes your Bitcoin more attractive and it shows the use case a lot more. So from that perspective, the volatility becomes quite apparent. Some are speculating that high inflation causes a bit of a ruckus in all the markets. So since it happens in the S&P, also it kind of transfers over to Bitcoin. On the opposite side, there's speculators saying, well, since ultimately it is quite a nice thing for Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin should be going up, not down. Talking about things going up, there's an unlock coming up for AVO. AVO itself, you don't have to know this. It's about the story around it. So just keep watching. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure you press that like button. Matter of fact, if you haven't signed up for a crypto exchange yet, I've got a link down below to the exchange I personally love the most. It's called Bybit. And yeah, that's the whole story. Check it out. A link is down below. You can get some massive bonuses for signing up, upwards of $30,000, and also 10% fee discount for a bit. But there's a couple other exchanges down below as well if Bybit doesn't work for you. But hey, that's the exchange I personally use the most for all my crypto trading. Anyway, so token unlocks here are shared. There's an unlock alert. A huge amount of AVO will unlock tomorrow, $900 million worth of AVO, or actually almost $1 billion worth of AVO, which is 752% of the circulating supply. So that's a lot, right? Let's say, for example, 1% was out there. Now, all of a sudden, 7.5% of the supply would get added. So instead of just being 1% out, it could be now 8.5% out there. Even though AVO chart shows the huge amount of token unlocks tomorrow, but actual tokens are migrated from RBN. Again, for the uninitiated, this was posted on Binance. According to Foresight, AVO has announced that RBN holders will be able to convert their RBN to AVO at a 1-to-1 ratio tomorrow. The token exchange UI is expected to go like yada yada yada. And now, side story, depending on whether or not this 1-to-1 had a snapshot, there's actually a really interesting arbitrage opportunity, because if one RBN can be swapped for one AVO is worth $1.06, and RBN is worth $1 as of this current point, you could become potentially a millionaire in just a day off of this, because a 5% difference here is a lot. But I haven't checked the rules, haven't checked everything. I'm guessing they have an interesting system, because otherwise it probably wouldn't have been in the tokenomics like this. My point being, however, that many people in the crypto space forget that token unlocks are still a thing. So let me quickly elaborate on two parts of this, so hopefully you guys have all the insights you need to trade this effectively, but more importantly, to understand your investments better. So one thing to explain is inflation in tokens. Bitcoin, for example, there will only ever be 21 million, and there's a part that comes out every, let's say, 10 minutes, which is why the halving was so important, because it basically decreases the Bitcoin inflation rate by, well, let's call it half. Often, though, the inflation kind of works in chunks, where there's not just a little bit that comes out every couple of minutes, sometimes that's the case, but usually every few months, let's say every month or every quarter or every year, some of the early stage investors get some of their tokens unlocked, which is the difference, for the most part, right, between this number right here, the fully diluted market cap, let me put it a little bit more into frame right there, here we go, and the current market cap. This is if all the tokens, right, all the 1 billion tokens, for example, were out there, and this is only of the current tokens out. When investing in cryptos, looking at this circulating supply can be really, really important. Not always relevant, but sometimes, because you might want to know how many more tokens will come out there to basically dilute the price. If, for example, the supply is only 0.01%, and you're thinking, oh, what a good price. Well, at that point, 99.9 whatever percent of the tokens still have to get out there. And if that happens in a month or so from now, your price might drop by a lot. But my most important point here was not to explain tokenomics to you. It was mostly just to warn you guys of projects that have these crazy unlocks in the near future, because very often the price kind of moves down as those unlocks come along, and I just want to warn you guys for that. But anyway, now that you know, I think you'll start noticing a lot more that certain coins are all of a sudden down a bit, and you don't really have any idea why. Sometimes it might have to do with these early stage investors, and if you guys want more updates on that, which coins you gotta be worried about sometimes, just let me know down below, and I will also get more of those updates out there. But yeah, for AVO, that might cause some crazy ruckus in the price tomorrow. I'm not really holding much AVO, so I don't really care. I was just saying it out there for the people that do. But most importantly is the inflation numbers that are coming out. Be wary and make sure you're not sleeping when it does.